Good evening, everyone. First, would like to start the meeting by recognizing that the area we call the Fraser Valley Regional District has been home to, I'm sorry, I can't even say it. Nukup. You say it for me.
Say like 31 First Nation.
31 First Nations peoples for generations. Actions and decisions made by government in the past have left many Indigenous communities untrusting of the Canadian healthcare system. It is our collective responsibility to keep this at the forefront of our minds as we make decisions as a hospital board, since the decisions we make have a direct impact on the physical and mental well-being of all community members, Indigenous and non-Indigenous alike. So with that in mind, I would like to call to order the June 27th, 2024 meeting of the Hospital Board to order. Thank you. The first item is Kinman.
Thank you. Looking for approval of the agenda, and late items.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Councillor, now I hear I'm going back in council meeting. Director Facio and Director Malkahonic. Those in favor, contrary, carried.
Item 4.1 is the draft Fraser Valley Regional Hospital District Board meeting minutes of April 25th, 2024.
Director Clute, Director Popoff. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, those in favor, contrary, carried.
Item 5.1 is the 2023 FVRHD annual report. This is an information item, but we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Seeing no discussion, next item, please.
Moving to reports from board directors.
Does anyone have a report this evening? Next item, please.
And now we go to public question period for items relevant to the agenda. We do not have any members of the public here in the boardroom this evening, but we'll just turn things over to our corporate officer, Jamie Van Ness.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do note we do have one member of the public joining us by Zoom tonight, and this would be your opportunity to ask a question relevant to the Fraser Valley Regional Hospital District Board meeting. If you do have a question, just hit the raise hand function. And it does not appear that our online viewer has a question, and we can move on to the next item.
Thank you. Ms. Kinnaman.
Looking for a resolution to close the meeting.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Director Facio and Director Horn, those in favor, contrary, carried. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll recess and then we'll move over to the regional district meeting.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Before I call the meeting to order, I'd like to start by recognizing the 31 communities with reserve lands in the FVRD jurisdiction and as many as 69 groups with interests in the area. This diverse landscape means that there are many different First Nation viewpoints that need to be considered when we make decisions, because what we decide as local government can affect everyone in different ways now and into the future. Part of our collective responsibility, I commit, we continually examine the work we do to ensure our projects, our plans, our initiatives and discussions are guided by the principles of inclusion, collaboration, and reconciliation today and into the future. With that in mind, I'd like to call to order the June 27th meeting of the Fraser Valley Regional District. First item.
Looking for approval of the agenda, and late items.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Facio, seconded by Director Gibson. Any discussion? Changes to the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor, opposed if any. Item carries. Next item.
Item 4.1 is the draft Fraser Valley Regional District Board meeting minutes of May 16th, 2024.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Reed, seconded by Director Johnson. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any. Item carries. Next item.
Items 5.1 through 5.4 are committee minutes for information and matters arising.
Thank you. Any questions on any of the committee minutes? Director Horn.
Just a quick note that I wasn't able to respond in time for the special vote on illegal dumping, but for the minutes, I was strongly in support as well, and just wanted to support all my colleagues who are working on that important issue.
Thank you, Director Horn. Don't see anything else. Next item.
6.1 is the Union of British Columbia Municipalities Convention Meeting Requests, again, an information item.
Thank you. Any questions on the meeting request for UBCM? Director Horn, go ahead.
Just a comment, speaking with Minister Alexis last week, my understanding there'll be very limited attendance by ministers this year. And so the recommendation I'm having is to streamline requests even more than usual. Just thought I'd pass that.
Thank you, Director Horn. I don't see any other questions, comments. Next item.
7.1 is the 2023 Canada Community Building Fund Community Works Fund reporting.
Thank you. Questions on the CWF? Don't see any. Next item.
7.2 is the 2023 FBRD Annual Report.
Thank you. Questions on the annual report? Looks great. A lot of work that's gone into that. Okay. Thank you. Next item.
7.3 is the 2023 Fraser Valley Regional District Statement of Financial Information.
Thank you. Questions on the Sophie report? Director Gibson.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed with interest that we wrote a check to a community on Vancouver Island, the city of Nanaimo, and of course I was curious as to why we would do that.
Thank you, Director Gibson. Ms. Kinnaman.
Sure, thank you for the question. I'll just turn to our CFO and see if she has access to that information.
Sloughborough.
Okay, thank you for the question. Through the chair to Director Gibson. Yes, we paid the city of Nanaimo for fire training. So they would have provided some training and they facilitated that for us.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions, Director Gibson? Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Don't see any. Next item.
7.4 is the Financial Plan 2024 to 2028 Amendment for June.
Thank you. That's moved by Director Ross, seconded by Director Pranger. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor. Opposed, if any. The item carries. Next item.
7.5 is a 2024 grant and aid request for the Boston Bar North Bend Enhancement Society in Electoral Area A.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Adamo, seconded by Director Johnson. Sorry about that, Director Johnson. I'm used to looking for you over there. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Next item.
7.6 is a 2024 grant and aid request.
Thank you. That's moved by Director Johnson, seconded by Director Barkman. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Next item.
7.7 is a 2024 grant and aid request for the River Monster Swim Club in Electoral Area B.
If I can get this right. It's moved by Director Adamo, seconded by Director Clute. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Next item.
7.8 is a 2024 grant and aid request for the Hemlock Valley Homeowner Association in Electoral Area C.
That's moved by Director Wardenberg, seconded by Director Castle. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Next item.
7.9 is a 2024 grant and aid request for the DeRoche Farmers Market in Electoral Areas C and G.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Castle, seconded by Director Wardenberg. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, the item carries. Next item.
7.10, 2024 grant and aid request for the Actively Creating an Exceptional Society, Electoral Areas C and G.
Thank you. That's moved by Director Wardenberg, seconded by Director Castle. Discussion. The magical Mother Earth Magic Food Forest. Magical. Excellent. No comments or questions. Hearing none. All in favor. Opposed if any. Item carries. Next item.
7.11 is a 2024 grant and aid request for the Cultus Lake Community School Association in Electoral Area H.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Dixon, seconded by Director Gill. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, the item carries. Next item.
8.1 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Hope and Electoral Area B Arena and Swimming Pool Service Area Amendment Bylaw number 1717.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Smith, seconded by Director Adamo. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor. Opposed if any, the item carries. Ma'am, I do see you raising your hand, but there's no opportunity for a public comment just yet. You will get an opportunity for public question period if you wish to ask a question for item on the agenda. Thank you. Next item.
8.2 is the Fraser Valley Regional District North Cultus Lake Sewer System Service Area Amendment Bylaw number 1719.
Thank you. That's moved by Director Dixon, seconded by Director Parkman. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Next item.
8.3 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Bylaw Offense Notice Enforcement Amendment Bylaw number 1740.
Thank you. Motion number 1, this is first reading, moved by Director Lowen, seconded by Director Smith. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Second and third reading.
Move motion 2, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Director Facio, seconded by Director McConick. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. And adoption is moved by Director Reed, seconded by Director Siemens. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Next item.
8.4 is Fraser Valley Regional District North Cultus Sewer System Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw number 1743.
Thank you. First reading, moved by Director Dixon, seconded by Director Pranger. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Second, third, moved by Director Gill, seconded by Director Clute. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Adoption is moved by Director Popov, seconded by Director Dickey. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Next item.
8.5 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Dogwood Valley Water System Service Area Amendment Bylaw number 1746.
Thank you. First reading, it's moved by Director Johnson, seconded by Director Adamo. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Second and third reading is moved by Director Clute, seconded by Director Dixon. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Next item.
Next item is section 9 of our agenda, which is permits, and I believe you have a
Thank
script in
you.
front of
I
you, Chair.
do. Pursuant to Part 14, Division 9 of the Local Government Act, this is the opportunity for the FERD Board to hear from the public regarding the 2 development variance permits listed on the agenda for this meeting. Anyone who believes that their interests are affected by the proposed applications will be given an opportunity to speak. If you have any verbal comments with respect to these permits and you're joining us on Zoom, I'd ask you to please press the raise hand function, and when it's your turn to speak, you'll be asked to unmute yourself. If you're joining us on Zoom by phone, please press *9. This will notify staff you wish to speak. When you're prompted to unmute yourself, please press *6. Those of you wishing to speak are asked to begin your presentation by providing your name and address, which we will record and form part of our official record. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes and confine your remarks to the application at hand. Ms. Kinnaman.
9.1 is Development Variance Permit 2024-02 to reduce the rear setback at 12202 Hodgkin Road in Electoral Area C.
Thank you. Is there any comments from the public regarding this application? Be the opportunity.
We do have a few members of the public joining us by Zoom, and if you do have a question with respect to this development variance permit, if you could just hit the raise hand function. And I'm just going to go to the member of the public we have in the audience.
This is item 9.1. So if you wish to speak to item 9.1, now would be your opportunity. Call for a second time, a third and a final time. Hearing none, what's the board's wishes? This is for EAs. It's moved by Director Wardenberg and seconded by Director Johnson. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, the item carries. Next item.
9.2 is Development Variance Permit 2023-06 to increase the maximum size of an accessory building at 52701 Park Rose Wind, Electoral Area D. And I would just note for the board that there was one letter received supporting the staff recommendation that was circulated earlier today.
Thank you. There'd be an opportunity for members of the public to speak to item 9.2. If you wish to speak, please indicate. Call for a second time. Call for a third and final time on item 9.2. Don't see any. What's the board's wishes? Director Dickey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is one of those complicated situations where the interests of the homeowner are in conflict with his next door neighbors, and it's resulted in a bit of controversy. Would choose to support the motion option 2 to refer back to staff.
So you would like to refer back to staff? Is there a seconder on referral? Seconded by Director Johnson. I'll call the question on referral. All in favor? This is EAs. Opposed? Motion to refer carries. Next item.
10.1 is the Nacomin Island Pump Station improvements.
Thank you. Need a mover and a seconder. It's moved by Director Castle, seconded by Director Horn. Discussion. Director Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. Just wondering through to staff, this one surprised me a little bit in that I know that monies were being allocated from grant monies for this work. But I was operating under the impression that the grant monies would be going through to Nacomin Island Improvement District to actually run the job. It looks like we're running the job, not Nacomin Island Improvement District. And my understanding of the nature of the grants is that we can't use that money to recoup what's essentially unfunded staff or staff time that's funded by service areas spent managing this work, and that we can't recoup that from the grant monies as well, or can we? I guess I'm wondering if the staff time being covered by some other service area not relevant to this actual project.
Ms. Kinnaman.
Sure, I think we'll just turn that over to Sterling Chan.
Mr. Chan.
Thank you. Through the chair to Director Davidson, the funding that we received for Nacomin Island Improvement District flood protection upgrades actually does allow for us to pay for staff time. So we are withdrawing the staff time recovery for this project.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Director Horn, go ahead.
I just wanted to acknowledge the work that has been done and continues to go into managing flood issues in the Hatzic watershed, and take particular time to thank Directors Castle and Davidson, our CAO, Ms. Kinnaman, and Mr. McCamey from Lacamo First Nation and from the First Nation as a whole. So this is, no pun intended, a watershed moment, a good investment, and a start of something I think we'd like to see continue. I think that table represents an innovative approach, and it's nice to see that it is bearing some results.
Thank you. Director Castle.
Thank you. I appreciate Director Horn's comments, but I'd just like to acknowledge that this is for Nacomin Island, not Hatzic.
He's just a friendly guy. The whole north side of the Fraser. Director Horn.
I acknowledge that. I wanted to simply state that I think that by being collaborative in our advocacy, we're more likely to get attention to the whole area. So thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other comments. I'll call the question. All in favor, opposed if any, the item carries. Next item.
11.1 is the FBRD quarterly update.
Thank you. Questions on the information item? Don't see any. Next item.
11.2, another information item. It's the 2024 Regional Growth Strategy Monitoring Report.
Thank you. Any questions? Don't see any. Next item.
11.3 is the human resources update for the second quarter.
Thank you. Questions? See, next item.
11.4 is agricultural land commission application for a non-adhering residential use at 58261 Fancher Road in electoral area B.
Thank you. So EAs, need a mover and a seconder. It's moved by Director Adamo, seconded by Director Wardenberg. Discussion. Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any, the item carries. Next item.
11.5 is bylaw building code contraventions at 13620 Stave Lake Road in electoral area F.
Thank you. Need a mover and a seconder. It's moved by Director Davidson, seconded by Director Smith. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Next item.
11.6 is strata title conversion application of a previously occupied duplex at 20942 Snowflake Crescent, electoral area C.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder. It's moved by Director Wardenberg, seconded by Director Clute. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, the item carries. Next item.
11.7 is human resources committee terms of reference.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder. It's moved by Director Shahal, seconded by Director Reed. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Next item.
Section 13, items 13.1 through 13.3 are items for information.
Any questions on our correspondence? Oh, sorry, information items. Don't see any. Next item.
Section 14 is items for correspondence. Happy to separate any of those items.
Any questions on correspondence? I see another letter from Kermit. Mayor Dahl. No questions. Next item.
Moving to reports by board directors.
Be your opportunity. Director Facio, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to announce that there will be a Canada Day this year in Harrison Hot Springs. There will be fireworks kicking up at 10 o'clock, and we hope that you all come down to Harrison if you can, and that if usual, if you bump into me, you'll get a treat. And that, as it happened at the great weekend with the Stahelis last weekend, wonderful weekend. There was a director who bumped into me with his wife, and they did get a treat. So you never know. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Facio. Director Horn.
Two items. The first is just to announce it was very nice to be able, after many years, to announce the groundbreaking of a inclusive daycare project in North Mission in Cedar Valley. And I want to take particular time to thank not only our city staff, but also MLA Deeth and Minister Alexis, because with the supply chain and cost issues that we've seen across the province, this one needed to go back for a second approval for additional funding, but it will be realized. And the bottom floor will have 61 spaces for children of all abilities, and the top floor will be a collective space that includes the Fraser Valley Child Development Center and many other providers, and will provide for autism assessment in the city of Mission, which is something that has made a significant difference in the number of families actually getting access to those services. And I'm proud to say the city of Mission providing a mortgage and the land on that project. So truly a win-win-win. Secondly, I wanted to just simply let our colleagues, particularly in municipalities along the highway or highways in our region, know that I asked at the recent mayor's forum of the RCMP for an update on the BC Highway Patrol question here in the Fraser Valley. We were told by Jamie Lipp, the Assistant Deputy Minister for the Provincial Ministry of Solicitor General and Public Safety, that issue has been set aside, and there's no expected action on it in the near future. And we were assured that if there was ever to have that issue raised again, a proper consultation with our municipal governments would precede it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Horn. Director Smith.
Yes, I want to thank Director Horn for bringing it up with the mayor's thing about the RCMP and the Highway Patrol. It was very important to us, and thank you for bringing that up.
So I'm a representative on the ESTIBC board for the Fraser Valley Regional District. So it's a district of Hope in Area B and Area A. So Hope got 25,000 for doing a white light project over the buildings downtown in Hope, with partnership with Advantage Hope and the Chamber. And the Chihuahua First Nations got 25,000 for doing some business development, looking into the future and that. So just knowing that we're represented at the board all the time, we appreciate that. If the board here showed confidence that the fact we sit there. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Smith. Director Macahonic, did you wish to? No, okay, sorry. I don't see any other lights on. Ms. Kinnaman, next item.
Next item is public question period for items relevant to the agenda, and we'll just turn things over to Jamie Van Ness.
Ms. Van Ness.
Thank you. So this would be the public's opportunity to ask a question relevant to the agenda. So if you are joining us by Zoom and you're calling by phone, you can hit *9 to raise your hand or hit the raise hand function. And I'm just going to go to the member of the public in the audience here, that this would be your opportunity, and I'll just get you set up with the microphone.
Yeah, we'll just get you on the mic just so we can record. Yeah, thank you.
My name is Karen Virtue. I'm the current president of the Yale and District Ratepayers Association. And I just wanted to ask a couple of questions, make a comment about bylaw 8 or item 8.1. The Fraser Valley Regional District Hope and Electoral Area B Arena and Swimming Pool Service Area Amendment bylaw.
Sure.
If that's all right.
Yep.
I don't pretend to know how this body works, so I don't know when these items were discussed. So forgive me if I'm coming into the discussion late. I will speak personally first and say that I'm full support of our rec center in Hope, but as the president of the ratepayers in Yale, I can tell you that this is an item that has caused great division in our community. And I feel in part it's because we haven't been given the information that we need to fully understand how what changes we're going to see. And of course, it is having to do with money and how much we're taxed and what that's going to look like. And that's always of concern to everybody. So we in our community have had various reports. And to be frank, I have seen nothing in black and white. I have asked for meetings. I'd like to get the information. I would have liked to have seen this bylaw in writing. I would like to have had an opportunity to discuss it. I would have liked to have had an opportunity to discuss that at a meeting with the public in Yale. With somebody that has knowledge of the
Ms. Virtue, I'm gonna
the money side of things.
Sure, I'm gonna just jump in a little bit because I'm extending a little bit of leeway here. It's for questions. So I heard a bit of a question about when we had first started discussing this bylaw. Let's ask staff. Maybe I'll go back to you when we first started discussing this bylaw, and then opportunities for feedback meetings. Ms. Kinnaman.
Sure, thank you. I'll begin and then perhaps I can turn things over to Ms. Barker. This issue has been before this body since the last board term. It was discussed numerous times, as well as through this board term. I do note that we did have a significant body of information on the Have Your Say website. I'll just look to Stacy. I'm not certain when that was put out there, but certainly there has been conversation both at the FERD table as well as the District of Hope table, information put in the Hope Standard as well as on our Have Your Say site. Stacy, I don't know if you had other information you wanted to add to that.
You asked when the notice was put on the Have Your Say site. I believe it was May 1st.
Okay, so we have had information on it May 1st, and you had, I think, another question just about the looking at financial
my problem is that when we have asked for information, we have been told by our representatives, and our representation has changed over the last year and a half. that's, things are confidential. Can't share information, can't share numbers. And it's fine to go online and have your say independently sitting in front of your own computer. What I'm asking for is a public meeting in my town so that we can come together as a community and ask our questions and have a clear understanding so that there will be no more heated divisions at my monthly meetings.
Okay.
I'm asking for information, that's all.
And Ms. Kinnaman, in terms of the request, I think staff can discuss it, and I think we'll have to get back to you. I don't know if that'll be decided tonight, but
This is not any request, not from our elected representative and not from this building. There are people in the building who are aware of that request being made repeatedly.
okay. Ms. Kinnaman, I don't know if you want to comment on when and how we determine public when we have public information meetings on items on the agenda.
Staff can certainly take that back and take it into consideration. It would be rather difficult right now to answer on the fly of when we could have, or if we could have a public information meeting about this item. My understanding is that there have been numerous representations made at the ratepayers meetings by the elected officials. So we would just need to understand what information had been provided thus far and how we could further assist the public.
Okay. And I don't know, Ms. Fraser, if you had any other questions specific on the item?
No, but I would like this to be addressed as soon as possible.
Okay. Thank you. Your request has been noted. Appreciate it.
And I appreciate the leeway. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Van Ness, other questions?
Just checking in with our online viewers. There is one phone number with the last 3 digits 994, and I had seen that they had raised their hand earlier in the meeting. Just noting again, this is your opportunity to ask a question relevant to the agenda. So if you'd like to ask, you can just hit *9 and raise hand. For those joining us by Zoom, we'll just maybe give the viewers a moment.
Okay.
Oh, I do see, yes, we do have one, the online caller.
Okay.
And let's see here. And they should be live now.
Perfect.
Hi. My name's Angela Miskey, and I live in the community of Sunshine Valley. And I would like to reiterate what the previous caller had just said. As a member of the community here in Sunshine Valley, we have the same concerns and would like to put in the very same request. We would like to have more information. There has been a meeting called, but none of our questions were answered. My understanding, because I was not able to make that meeting, that we were actually, the people that were there trying to raise questions were being shut down and the questions were being ignored and not answered. So we have a lot of concerned members, community members in here that would like to request the same thing, an information meeting with our community in regards to basically the tax bill that we're going to get thrown from Hope for their community center.
Okay, thank you for your request. Appreciate it. And we've noted that. I see our staff are writing it down. Ms. Van Ness?
And I'll just, for last time, check in to see if there's any other questions relevant to the agenda. And it doesn't appear that there's any further questions from our online viewers.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Next item.
Looking for a resolution to close the meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, it's moved by Director Facio, seconded by Director Barkman. Discussion, hearing none. All in favor? Opposed, if any? And we're closed.
Thank you. We're ready to go when you are, Chair.
Thank you. Next item. We're
So
back to our open.
we've reconvened the open meeting. So we are going to go to item 21, which is motions for which notice has been given. 21.1 soil deposit bylaw 2025, brought forward by Director Corey Castle, Electoral Area G.
Thank you. I move in a second here. It's moved by Director Castle and seconded by Director Adamo. And discussion. Director Castle.
Thank you, Chair Lam. Since I joined this board nearly 2 years, first of all, I'm going to start by saying I didn't realize this was going to be the very last thing on the agenda. And I do have a rationale that I'd like to present, so please bear with me at this late hour. Since I joined this board nearly 2 years ago, the issue of illegal dumping in electoral areas has been a predominant topic of concern amongst many residents, especially those in areas H and area F, both of which have experienced major impacts from illegal dumping to residents in those areas. This board has made numerous pleas to provincial ministries and the Agricultural Land Commission, and enforcement efforts have been made by CVSC and the RCMP, as well as assistance from First Nation authorities to put an end to the dumping. The FERD board has and continues to request assistance from provincial authorities, including requests for legislative changes to give more teeth to enforcement activities undertaken by the ALC. With no avail, the dumping continues throughout the electoral areas and appears to be moving eastward out of ALR lands and into areas G, C, and even the District of Kent. Throughout our discussions with provincial representatives, in particular with the Ministry of Agriculture, the FERD has been asked to consider the implementation of a soil deposit bylaw that could get FERD staff another tool that could be used to have an impact when acting on calls for service on properties where illegal dumping is occurring. Through all of this, it has been an expectation of some members of this board and many residents that our bylaw enforcement staff attend and assist in enforcement efforts. Yet, current FERD bylaws only address fill that happens within 30 meters of a water course, which leaves the FERD lacking in an ability to effectively assist with enforcement efforts. My understanding is that FERD staff has spent considerable time and resources on this file while not really having skin in the game in terms of ability to have a real impact on the process. I believe we owe it to the residents we represent, as well as to the partners that we are requesting action from, to explore and consider all options and tools that are available to us, including a soil deposit bylaw, which could also clarify and confirm to FERD staff what the priorities of this board are, as it seems counterintuitive to me that we expect staff to address an issue that the board hasn't provided clear direction on through policy. Through this motion, the intent is to have staff include options for implementation of a soil deposit bylaw as part of the 2025 financial planning process and work plans. This motion does not adopt a soil deposit bylaw for the FERD, but instead directs staff to demonstrate to the board what impact such a bylaw could have on the financial and work plans, and will give directors an opportunity to consider and consult. If the board does not feel that consideration of a soil deposit bylaw is warranted, then I would suggest that we work to understand the impact that current expectations to have staff working on these files has and could continue to have on the FERD's ability to provide effective service with bylaws and policies that are currently on the books. If we don't want to consider a soil deposit bylaw, how can we expect staff to continue to prioritize resources on this file? And what message are we sending to the various authorities that we expect to act on it? I look forward to hearing thoughts from other directors on this motion.
Thank you, Director Castle. Director Davidson, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So speaking against the motion, I think I appreciate Director Castle's comments, but one bylaw that does apply today is our zoning bylaw. And you can't bring in fill, clean or otherwise, on non-ALR land unless it's in support of the designated land uses on that property. So we can be enforcing a zoning bylaw today in cases where fill is brought in on non-ALR land. The challenge with the soil bylaw and our zoning bylaw and any other bylaw is that the penalties that we can invoke through those bylaws is just inadequate to overcome the economic gain that people violating the bylaws are getting. So in my mind, it will have no impact if we had this bylaw, and I don't want staff to direct their time on that until such time as we have some understanding or some some way of having penalties that will make a dent in the incentive for people to violate and dump illegal fill wherever they want. So I think at this point, we're not there yet. So I know staff always have better things to do. I don't think a zoning bylaw is, soil bylaw will impact anything at this point. You have to bear in mind, we're dealing with entities that are fully prepared to tear down stop work orders. Doesn't matter whether it's a stop work order on zoning or a stop work order on a soil bylaw. And as far as preventing anything, the only prevention we've seen be at all effective to date has been when residents stand in front of the trucks at their own personal safety and risk of arrest. And I don't think a soil bylaw changing that simple truth. Thank you.
Director Adamo.
Thanks very much. I do support this motion from Director Castle. I've had a lot of discussion with a lot of different people involved, and I've been involved in this personally now in one of my areas. And I really believe that it's a good place for us to be in right now as we continue to work with the ministries involved as well to try to develop a better and more solid program and more solid enforcement issue. But we have to take a stand here and start somewhere. And we're not getting anywhere right now. And if it's one little tool that we can have in our tool belt and a possibility of receiving funds from this enforcement act for our own understaffed department, then I would be supporting that as well. So I think it's something that we need to continue to push forward. So I support this motion.
Director Dickey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think all of the electoral area directors are united in prioritizing addressing this problem. The question is the efficacy of which alternative. And in speaking with some of the representatives from the municipalities, and as I understand the meeting between our CAO and the municipalities CAOs, that people with more experience than I have in this area feel that an advocacy role by the regional district, by all the members of the regional district approaching the province and trying to develop a planning exercise to address this issue is more likely to be successful. And that would be where my support would be at this time, is to pursue that alternative. Thank you.
Director Barkman.
Maybe you could help me out with this one. When would be appropriate to make a comment about the new bill that's in our package?
Sorry, you'd have to be give me a little bit more clarity. Which new bill? Sorry.
It says under the new bill, dumping construction waste and damage substances on farmland.
Could you tell me what page of the agenda that you're?
60, right at the top. Thank you.
Director Siemens.
I guess my question is just a little bit more in process. So municipalities have a soil permit or bylaw. So would this be something that it was exclusively for the electoral areas and then funded out of their administration budget? So I guess my question is, if that's the case, then is it appropriate for all of us to be voting on that? Or would that be something that would be more appropriate for just the electoral areas?
We thought this question was going to come up.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair to Director Siemens. Yes, these are always the tricky regional district items that come forward. From a funding perspective, it would only apply to the electoral areas, and it would be funded through the bylaw enforcement budget, which is only funded through the electoral areas. However, many votes come before this table, which are an all unweighted vote, and bylaws of this nature, because it's not a Part 14 matter, it's not EAs only, so it requires a full board vote.
Okay, Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm speaking against the motion. I feel that I've had a massive illegal dumping in my area for 3 years now, and the province can't seem to do much about it. Besides, finally, they have implemented fines, no consideration of fines, For me, I think that advocacy back at the provincial level is where this needs to go. They should be able to have the tools to address this um, at that level. And I think at our level, until we can go to a property and say we're taking your entire property, I just struggle to see how we are going to have any impact. So my preference is to I'll be voting against it and working with the advocacy angle.
Director McElhannock.
I also against the motion, and for some of the same reasons as Director Dixon and Dickey mentioned. And I just think if we go ahead and do something like this and have bylaws, it dilutes the responsibility from the province, and that concerns me. I also have dumping in my area. Some is on Indigenous land, and a new dumping that's just started that I spoke to Mr. Danluz earlier this evening about. And I think advocacy and a hard push to the province is where we need to go. And I really don't want to have it offloaded. I think we have enough to deal with. And I think just keeping on top of it and being aware and is, so I'm against it for those reasons. Thank you.
Director Horn.
My understanding and a question to the chair and staff is that soil removal and soil deposit bylaws are basically costed to replace damage to roads. And the municipalities own the roads that are being damaged by trucks going over them. But here, the province owns the roads we're speaking of. So I'm not even sure at the feasibility of this, which is one of the issues I've raised with the minister. The other issue I've raised is simply the extraordinary cost of enforcement, which is a challenge at the best of times, never mind in an area as large as we're talking about here. I'll vote against the motion despite how strongly I feel about this issue, because in the simplest of terms, we need to be pushing the province to do their job. And if we are mixing the message by accepting a download, I think that becomes a much harder piece of advocacy.
Okay, a couple of staff kind of questions that are kind of comments that I just want to refer back to staff. So on the question from Director Horn around proceeds from a soil deposit removal bylaw going back into road repair. And then the second one is we already, the comment, I think it was Director Davidson made around zoning bylaw enforcement, and that we have the ability to enforce through a zoning bylaw already. So maybe those two things, Ms. Kinnaman.
Sure. If we could just have Mr. Daniluz answer those questions.
Thank you. Through the chair. The Local Government Act enables regional districts to adopt soil deposit bylaws, and to levy fees for them. The fees can be applied for purposes broader than only roads. They can be applied to administration costs for maintaining the soil deposit bylaw program. I think a related example, FERD's adopted commercial gravel operations bylaw that draws on this soil extraction powers of the same section of the Act. And we do levy fees based on the quantity of soil removed from properties. That money doesn't go to roads, but it goes to maintain the service that supports the bylaw. And that's a bylaw that was approved by the Minister of Mines and had extensive legal vetting. So we're quite confident in that authority to levy fees even for soil deposit and to apply those fees for purposes other than roads. With respect to the second question about the application of zoning to soil deposit, zoning does have what I would characterize as a limited and partial application to soil deposit. And zoning would come into play, for example, if the soil deposit on a property rose to the level of some kind of facility, or the material being deposited was, say, construction and demolition debris or something like that, in which case the use would be a landfill use and would definitely be subject to zoning. In many of the cases where our bylaw staff are going out to look at soil deposit sites, there's a lot of difficulty in applying zoning bylaws to regulate the soil deposit as a land use. there's some questions that we sought legal advice on with respect to zoning, and maybe an opportunity for staff to report back to you on zoning bylaws, the powers of zoning, and their application to soil deposit in the future with something a little bit more concrete. But case law that's arisen through cases on Vancouver Island about mines operations has started to shift the understanding of soil removal and deposit, and whether those are uses of land or something different, consumption of land, or something that's not subject to land use regulation. So I appreciate that that's probably a very unclear answer, but it's an unclear subject and we're looking to get better clarity. The take home message, I believe, with respect to zoning is that it's a partial and limited power. And if we rely on zoning to effectively regulate soil deposit, I think we'll be quite disappointed with the outcomes.
Thank you, Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, I would speak in favor of this motion for the very reasons Mr. Castle or Director Castle pointed out. We seem to be spending a lot of staff time on this issue. I would look forward to seeing some options as far as the bylaw goes and the expense of that, and yeah, what that would entail. I don't think we're actually voting on the bylaw right now. We're just directing staff to put one together, and giving the tools that I think they need on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Barkman, go ahead.
So we've identified a dumping site. They say, okay, we'll come and get a permit. Are there any fines that can be levied before they get the permit? And secondly, if we have an issue of cleanup, do we have the capacity, let's say it's messed up a creek or it's contaminants that have to go some other place, who pays for that bill? And can that be part of either the fine or the people that have been depositing the soil?
Ms. Kinnaman?
I think Mr. Daniluz is well positioned to answer that one.
Through the chair, if the board adopted a soil deposit bylaw, we have some opportunities for enforcement that we wouldn't currently have. We could.
You're just asking for, just speak just a bit closer to your microphone, please, Mr. Daniluz.
Apologies.
Yeah.
Thank you. When it comes to enforcing soil deposit bylaws, we do have an opportunity to ticket. There's two forms of ticketing we can use. The maximum tickets are $500 and $3,000 for the two different types of ticketing processes we use. We also have an opportunity to collect revenues from quantity-based revenues from sites where soil is being deposited, and can use that money to administer the program, including prosecute infractions to the courts, which I'd suggest is probably the most effective, would be the most effective means in enforcing the zoning bylaw against a particularly recalcitrant actor.
Thank you. Okay, Director Gill, you're on the list. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I guess my question is if this motion does carry, would I guess the board understand what the costs are and what does get removed from the work plan?
Ms. Kinnaman?
Through the chair to Director Gill, my understanding of the motion is for this to be brought forward to the budget process. And so that would be when that would be discussed, and it would be explored in conjunction with other items that would be considered for the 2025 work plan.
Okay. Director Reed?
Thank you, Chair. Just a question maybe through to staff. I'm listening to the EA directors talk about the difference between the bylaw and advocacy. And so trying to, not being at that table, trying to understand why we can't do both, or why there isn't an opportunity to do both.
Thank you, Director. I guess I can take that question. I think we are doing both. We have been doing the advocacy piece. Whether or not we've been getting satisfactory results, out of that advocacy is another question, I guess. We've met numerous times with the ALC, with the minister, with ministers. I've met with a group of the EA advocacy. I've met with groups of the electoral area directors with the ministers. So we've sent multiple letters to multiple ministers. We've now requested another meeting with the premier. We've requested meetings with the ministers. So I think that advocacy will be ongoing, regardless of what happens tonight. I think one of the points that I heard Director Castle made, and I can comment on it. It's something that we have heard consistently when we've met with the minister, is the question of why we do not have a soil deposit bylaw in the regional district, so that is something where the province has consistently tried to level that back on us, and I think there's also been some concern from directors that, you know, it would be a form of downloading that work onto the regional district. I've heard that you know, it would be helpful to work in conjunction, so the province is willing to, you know, if the regional district is willing to put things on the table, maybe it acts as leverage to what the province is willing to come to the table with. There's a lot of moving pieces on the file, so but I think the advocacy piece is one of those pieces that's definitely moving.
Thank you,
And
Chair.
From a staff perspective, I think that, as Chairman mentioned, we have been very involved in these files, and yet we do not have a tool to be effectively involved. And so I think from a staff's perspective, we wouldn't necessarily be suggesting or recommending a soil deposit bylaw. But if the board wishes us to be involved in these files, that's the tool that we should have in order to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, now who do we have on the list? We've got Director Warkentin.
Yeah, thank you. It's a very concerning issue all over the place. I have a question, and I'm going to ask staff to do their best on it. Do we have any idea, thinking of the cost of such a program, but also the revenue that comes out of it? Do we have any idea, with a robust program, how much revenue it might generate if we were to seriously pursue offenses?
Ms. Kinnaman.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Daniluz on that one.
Mr. Daniluz.
To the chair, thank you. That's a astute question. I'm not in a position, I think, to estimate revenues, but it's relevant, I think, to think that we're approaching 40 sites in which the province, or in some cases the regional district, imposed the stop work order in around the area of community in Area G. And so you can do some math and consider that if all of those sites were under permit, paying a cost to us on a per cubic meter basis, that it could amount to meaningful revenues to support the program. But I'm afraid I couldn't do any better with an estimate at the moment. I could say that the cost for operating such a program, I think, would be in the $100,000 to $150,000 annually range.
Just follow up for that. This will put you in your top of your pay category if you can answer it. Did you have any sense that whether the revenue would be at least equal to the cost of such a program?
My guess would be that the revenues would not be equal to the cost. And I've been giving you just incredibly off the cuff and a wild sort of guess at it. If we achieved a 50% cost recovery through soil deposit revenues, I would be impressed with that.
If I may, does that on the revenue side, does that include we just thinking about permitting for legal activities, or are you including fines for illegal activities in your revenue side?
There could be two potential sources of revenue. One would be tickets that we impose for folks who deposit soil without a permit, and the second would be could be a per unit of soil deposited charge. And so, for comparison, when we talk about commercial gravel operations, we levy a 15 or 20 cents per cubic meter fee, and that generates in the order of $250,000 for us annually for our commercial gravel operations program. I don't anticipate the revenues from soil deposit, at least in initial years, would approach that amount. But it's hard to guesstimate those revenues at this point. I think it would be reasonable for the board to think about a full cost to aim towards a full cost recovery model like we've done on the commercial gravel operations side. But I'd suggest that it probably would mean ramping up towards full cost recovery over a period of 10 years or something like that. But this is difficult. These are choppy waters to navigate at the moment. And if the board directs staff to prepare a business case, we would think through these issues in a much more systematic and reasoned way.
Okay, Director Clute.
Thank you. I just have a question through to our staff as well. So how do we have an idea percentage of how many bylaw infractions do not get paid versus do get paid? Because I know we had something on our agenda earlier this evening where there was a lot of outstanding tickets as well.
Ms. Kinnaman.
Mr. Danilus?
A significant number of tickets don't get paid and are sent to collections. And if we're successful in collections, we might recover 40% of the ticket value.
Okay. And then secondly, I'm just, so we're looking at potentially supporting this and having it included in next year's work plan. But if it meets the board's goals, it wouldn't become a bylaw till the earliest next year at some point, correct? So
Ms. Kinnaman.
That's correct. It would take some time to actually develop the bylaw and bring it back to the board for adoption.
Okay, Director Pranger, you wanted to go first time.
Just a couple of comments. I would support anything that helps to get this situation stopped. But we're in the report, it also talks about that the Land Commission says they only have 6 bylaw enforcement officers for the province and that they can't possibly keep up. So in other words, what they're saying to us, we can't keep up, so you guys go ahead and look after it. And that's not what we're supposed to be doing. This is something that the province should be looking after and getting it done. And that's why the advocacy, but the request for meeting should come quickly so that we can get this stopped and not have to spend hours and hours at the board level talking about it and have our staff spend hours and hours following up and putting stop work orders on sites all over the Fraser Valley Regional District. So the province, we need to talk to them to make sure that they step up to the plate and do their job. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so everybody who has wished to speak a first time has spoken once. Those wishing to speak for a second time have indicated on their lights that they wish to. Yes, no, yes. I'm calling for first time or last time. Good. Okay, so I'll go through the list. This is for the second time. Go ahead, Director Dickey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and drawing on some ancient history, Mr. Danilus has mentioned the commercial gravel situation that we have now with our agreement with the provincial government. And prior to that being affected, the electoral areas were chasing the gravel operators through our bylaws and through the courts, and it was very ineffectual. The only thing that got people to start take notice of this was creating a cooperative advocacy program, which included the provincial government, the operators, and the electoral areas. And suddenly everybody started to play nice and recognize that this cowboy outlaw situation had to be formulated in a way that had regulation. And to me, the province are the people with the big guns, and we need to get them at the table. This issue is originating in Metro Vancouver, and there needs to be a system in place to somehow formalize this so that there's regulation and controls over this. And that I think is worth at least pursuing, as the CAOs have advised us in the meeting that they held with our CAO. Thank you.
Okay, Director Dixon, did you wish to speak? You had your light on, then it went off. Nope, you're good. Okay. Then I've got Director Davidson and Castle. So go ahead, Director Davidson. Then I'll give you the last word, Director Castle.
Thank you, Chair. So speaking to a couple of comments, I know the question was asked about, do people pay their tickets or not? Really what's top of mind for me, I've got 37, if not more, stop work orders in my area, kind of representing 5% of the land base. Is compliance versus non-compliance, and what's the path to compliance? And soil bylaw neither prevents nor gets us compliant. It's this court action that's going to be needed to make that happen. But anyway, some discussion on the funding for it I found was interesting, because the reality is, again, this issue has been caused by bad actors, deliberately bad actors, who are quite prepared to buy a piece of land and deliberately wreck it so they can make profit from illegal fill. And that's the antagonist in this. And trying to overcome that by essentially charging good actors so that you can help fund going after the bad actors just seems wrong, inequitable, however you want to put it. We have a bylaw service area where we could be taxing if we need to, but just to charge fees against people who are acting in good faith, so we can fund going after those in bad faith, to me seems inequitable. And the other thing that comes to my mind too is that I think by going forward with the soil bylaw is that we're actually undermining our own advocacy efforts, because the realities, as I see them anyway, are such that a soil bylaw isn't going to make any difference. And I think that needs to be our message to the province. One of the challenges that's ongoing right now is that our constituents are coming to us and saying that, and after talking to our MLA's office, that we should be going after a soil bylaw. So we need to have these discussions with the province first and see where it goes. One other thing I would mention too is that on September 11th, we have the electoral area priorities planning workshop, where we're going to discuss basically everything that everybody wants. And I think this for me at this point should go into that as a candidate, and not get special treatment at this time. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, Director Castle.
Thank you, Chair Lum. I want to thank the board for a very robust discussion. I believe it's very important for the residents we represent, as well as the agencies that we're advocating for help, to hear this discussion. And I thank you for that very robust discussion. Just a couple of things that I've heard. I just would like to remind us all that so far our advocacy efforts have resulted in the FERD needs a soil removal bylaw. So I don't know what continued advocacy is going to result, other than the repeated message from the provincial government that we need some skin in the game and we need a soil removal bylaw. Their staff referenced $500 and $3,000 fines. Can we clarify? That's 500 and 3,000 per day. Am I correct in that? Yep. So
you, Chair. That's right. It's a $500 or $3,000 fine per occurrence, and that could be per day, although that practice is typically frowned upon through the courts. But certainly multiple. In our current practice, we can issue multiple tickets over time to the same party for the same offense that is not seized.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think for me, the most important point of all of this is and there was a reference from staff with regards to being the fact that FERD staff have been very involved on these files. And I'm wondering if staff could characterize the time and resources that have been spent on an issue that we have no jurisdiction on, and how that may have impacted bylaws and policies that we currently have in place.
Thank you. Through the chair to Director Castle. As you know, our bylaw enforcement process is complaint driven. And so anytime our office receives a complaint, we certainly go and investigate that complaint. But I would just maybe ask Mr. Danilus to comment on the scale and scope of time that our bylaw team has been taking on this one.
Danilus.
Thank you, Chair. We've allocated our staff resources to soil deposit infractions to a considerable extent. We consider it to be a crisis, and the board's been quite alarmed by it, and we've allocated our time accordingly. I'd suggest we have two bylaw enforcement officers, two full-time bylaw enforcement officers. I wouldn't be too far off if I suggested that one of those officers spends the better part of each week on these files. So I would say it's probably between something in the order of a third to 2/3 or 3/4 of an FTE is what we've been investing in soil deposit files over the last number of months.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And so I guess my whole point of bringing this forward is that we are expending considerable resources, a third of our ability to enforce bylaws and policies that we currently have on the books on something that we don't have any skin or any jurisdiction in this. And so my hope would be that if the board chooses not to at least explore and consider giving our staff tools on this, that we would kind of let staff know that this is a provincial matter, and that perhaps we should refer those who are calling for service from the regional district to call their MLA if they would like service on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're ready for the question. The item is being moved and seconded. Call the question. All in favor? Okay. And you're good, Mrs. Van Ness?
Yes, if we maybe want to call, see who's
And
opposed.
opposed? The motion carries. Motion carries. Next item is Kinnaman.
Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. It's
Moved, Mr. Chair.
by Director Facio, seconded by Director Reed. All in favor, opposed if any, item carries. We are adjourned.
Could we ask Chair Pranger to adjourn the hospital district meeting?
So moved.
Director Ross, Director,
Pass.
those in favor?
Thank you very much, everyone.